I'm Lyle Mailman, and I'm in with the Beaverbank Community Watch. Thank you, and welcome to the Lions Club. We are here in their beautiful dining hall, and we're doing candidate interviews for the provincial election on Tuesday, November 26th. So, we are asking Beaverbank questions of the Beaverbank Fall River Waverley candidates. So please, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Brian Wong, and very fortunate enough to have been your incumbent for the past 3 years and a bit. You know what, Beaverbank is probably the area where I have done a lot of work, gotten to know all the community groups, and I think we've made a lot of progress, and I'm looking forward to working more in the future.
And Brian, what is kind of those things that we talk about, and taking the step into public office and showing those community leadership things? What was kind of the things that have inspired you to do so?
So I've always been involved in community. I was a teacher for 14 years. I was a principal for 14 years. And my whole career was in the West Hants area, in the Windsor area. Mm-hmm. Throughout those years, I really committed myself to community, coaching sports teams, organizing, SACs, parent-teacher, like all of those things that go along with being a school administrator or a teacher. So I've been able to take those energies that I had in my school community and to really make it in this community. Danny's my constituency assistant. We measure our days and our weeks by how many people we were able to help.
Ooh,
so unfortunately, we always say we have 3 classes of people that come to our office, and the result is that there's people that we can absolutely help, and there's people that we can help them navigate, and then there's people, unfortunately, that we truly can't help. It's beyond our means.
Okay, that's awesome. So, as we get our Beaverbank questions, Beaverbank, of course, is a unique riding. Our residents, we go to Sackville to shop, commute through Sackville, and then have our children go to school down Wingate to Lockview High. In the previous elections, Beaverbank was split into 2 ridings, with Sackville and Fall River. But at least this election and the last one, we are together. What can be done to make better community connections with like Beaverbank, Fall River, Waverley?
So Waverley, Fall River, Beaverbank is an artificial boundary set by Elections Nova Scotia so that your representative represents a certain population. You just said it yourself, is that Beaverbank is unique. Beaverbank is separate. The only connection, except for people have friends and and things they may go to Fall River or Waverley for, but for the most part, Beaverbank is more of a part of Sackville. Their high school students go through, from H.T. Barrett and then go into Lockview. Is that part of being community? I'm not sure. But what does happen once they get into the school system at Lockview is that they do get a new group of friends. They expand their scope. There's more opportunities. There's more sports they'll have available to them. There's more clubs. There's just more activity. Sometimes that's a good thing, and for a lot of kids that it is. However, if Beaverbank students didn't have to cross Wingate and did have the option to maybe go to school in Sackville, maybe it's a better option, but we won't know that yet. So I do feel that Beaverbank is unique. They have their own unique challenges, own unique sense of community, and it's organizations like what you're doing right now that brings community together and that keeps community looking forward to things to do and to things to accomplish together.
Awesome. And as we talk about community connections and kind of infrastructure and transportation, Beaverbank has had Marchson Drive connector, the Beaverbank bypass, long promised and then removed from provincial plans. It was canceled in 2002 when the second lake collector that was going to be built to the 107 now, it had Lawrencetown till that would kill the lake, so that was canceled, and then the Beaverbank bypass appears to have been canceled about that same time. Having one way in and out has been a safety concern with 3 quarry operations in North Beaverbank. And then there's the introduction now of high density apartments. We see Murchison Drive has been built from the 101 to Middle Sackville, and then the Wellington Connector, 102 to Wellington. Having these collector roads, but it isn't on the plans now for extension to Beaverbank, but having these collector roads would allow redirection of traffic and speed adjustments for crosswalks and safety. So the Joint Regional Transportation Agency will be announcing their projects this month or next month. Then there was a sustainability study to extend the Beaverbank Road to Hammond's Plains. What are you hearing door to door? What are your thoughts?
So you know what? So when I did campaign in the last election, what I did hear at the doors was Beaverbank Connector. Traffic was the #1 issue up here, continues to be the #1 issue. So when the Joint Regional Transportation Agency was established by Premier Houston, it was set up to look an hour outside of Halifax, all the way up past Truro, all the way down past Kentville, and to look at what is the infrastructure we need today and 25 years down the road in order to accommodate our current population and future growth.
Yes.
So we recently announced a connector from the 102 into Hammond's Plains. Several years ago, there was a connector from the Aerotech connector from the 102 down into Wellington.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the early 1990s, there was a connector coming from the original design was really going from the Aerotech connector in through Wellington, in through Beaverbank, out to the 101, in through Hammond's Plains. There was kind of that circle. Somehow that got taken away in the early 2000s and the Beaverbank connector didn't happen. We all know that Beaverbank has grown exponentially in the last 30 years. So we do need something. There was a study done 2 years ago that said, you know what, if we start looking at egress, ways to get out in case of a fire, we're really stuck here in Beaverbank, we really are. We say there's one way out. Well, technically you can go either end of Beaverbank, that makes 2, not ideal. The other thing, you can go up through Galloway and up through those streets to get out onto Wingate, not ideal compared to what other people have. So I was able in the first week, the very first day actually, that the executive director of the Joint Regional Transportation Agency had a conversation, eventually got him out to meet with some folks from Beaverbank to say this is how important the connector is, and the connector is absolutely at top of mind for them. So I'm not sure what's coming out in the report. This is the first phase of the report, but I'm hoping that we're on it. If not, I'm hoping I will advocate to make sure it gets there. So there's a lot of people anticipating it, and I'm still here and still willing to work on it.
It's fantastic. Just to get it back on in the conversation and to look at.
And it's a long-term solution. It's not something that's going to happen in the next few years. It takes time because there are landowners. There's property that's owned by the province.
And you have priorities with certain densities because you do have Hammond's Plains, which is just, there's so much that's happening there. With the 107 opening up, that prevents Hammond's Plains traffic from having to go down and drive by the Chicken Burger.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
If instead of going into the denser corridor down the full Hammond's Plains and then up on the 102 to the 107, if some of that can be redirected, But that's and then Murchison Drive. We figure as we talked about that ring, that sort of next ring of growth as Halifax settles in this radial pattern, and then we have our kind of circumferential highways. Having Murchison Drive at the 101 extend on that side of Lucasville would allow emergency egress for like Glen Arbor and stuff like that as well. So
that's a good point. Absolutely.
And then, would that continue to the 103? So that way a vehicle can go from down the 102 and get to the 103 without coming in and causing that congestion sort of thing. That'd be very exciting how things develop.
Yeah, and that's what the Joint Regional Transportation
Developing
Agency is
do.
looking at.
Yeah.
So we know we're going to have growth, but we need responsible growth. We need to make sure that the people that are immigrating to Nova Scotia are, the people that we need: healthcare workers, skilled trades workers. Some of the population growth, a lot of it actually, over 20,000 last year, were people moving from other provinces into Nova Scotia. People that moved to Alberta 20 years ago and want to come back. But yet we still do need some level of immigration to fill the jobs that we truly need. So we'll continue to work, continue to look for ways that we can build infrastructures to support.
Yeah. We kind of follow up with that, of course, and with that discussion is the infamous Wingate Beaverbank Road intersection. The last train, I say it was 12 years ago, but that was 12 years ago, 3 years ago.
It seems
yeah,
longer.
it has been. I think we're going up 15, 16.
That'd be 15. Let me see.
It's the intercolonial Windsor rail line.
Yeah.
And that intersection has been upgraded and paved. There has been some good steps getting the signs removed earlier, so that way buses don't have to stop. That was great to have those sorts of things fast-tracked.
Yeah.
What do we look at? Like, there was also mention of if there could be commuter rail in the feasibility study to Windsor. There's kind of that rails to trails opportunity that also presents itself in the meantime for recreation and tourism for Beaverbank. What's your thoughts? What would you do kind of if your mandate was to continue? What could we do with that?
Yeah, you know what? I'd really like to see that section, a combination used for recreational use and for some form of rail, whether it's light rail, commuter rail, because we do have to move people. We absolutely have to move people to reduce the congestion that we have coming into Halifax. I think there's an opportunity to look at that connector from Windsor into Windsor Junction as some type of light rail and recreational. There's no reason why they can't enhance the rail bit, because there's a lot of work that has to be done on it now. It's in major disrepair. I have seen drone footage of it. It's going to take a lot of money and it's going to take time. But there's no reason that it can't be designed to use both. There are precedents for that, and I think that is certainly something I'd advocate for. There's a lot of people that like to bike, like to hike, like to use their ATVs, and there's lots of trails already that accommodate all of those, and respectfully so.
Yeah.
So I'll certainly advocate for that. As far as the intersection, we really need to do something there. I was stuck there the other night. For 10 minutes, there were 12 cars in front of me.
Well, and that's where, as we talk about Margison Drive, like it's something that will eventually, as density and things like that, as things happen, do we get a realignment of the intersection? Do we have lights? Where Margison would come down to that, would it come down the rail bed? Probably not.
No.
Would it go through Bear property? Would it be aligned with Quarry? Quarry Road, those sorts of things. Yeah, it's
and there's a lot to look at.
To look at, and then can we just do lights? Can we, right?
Yeah, because Quarry Road itself is actually the shortest distance between to get to Marginson. It's only really a couple of kilometers, I believe, and maybe it's part of the solution. But something does have to happen with that intersection. If you're coming off of Wingate. To turn left there unless somebody stops to let you in at peak hours.
Yes,
it's really tough.
That's what there's been many comments of people just saying, all right, we need to slow down here and help let some people out. Put on the four-way flashers and be a good thing, which is like, hey, it's good, but then it's like, are they really stopping?
Yeah, but it makes it dangerous. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It does make it dangerous.
It makes
you have
guesswork.
to take a risk.
It makes guesswork and risk at an intersection.
So we do need to work on that. And our municipal councillors need to work on that as well. So look forward to working with whoever we need to in order to improve it.
Yeah, so we had the Uniac Trails group that tried to see about getting it converted to trails. It went to the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board. Eventually it was dismissed because they weren't the proper body to say, hey, the Windsor Hants Rail Company is not operating a proper railroad. So the Utility Review Board said that the Nova Scotia Transportation Infrastructure Renewal, they would be more of the proper body to challenge. Now, I know CN and Windsor-Hants are kind of doing a legal dance a little bit, but at least we've said in information meetings that CN has been part of the JRTA.
And they've been in
as well.
conversations, yeah. So the Joint Regional Transportation Agency is absolutely interested and looking at the option to be able to open up that section of rail. It's important. I mean, when we try to take the traffic off of the highways, we need options to get in. When I was a kid, when I was at university,
Yes.
way back when, they used to have the dayliners. I used to take the dayliner. I was going to Dalhousie and take the dayliner back home to Digby, back in 1981, 82.
And some of
it was
that
great.
ran until the mid-90s.
It absolutely.
I can't believe that I never took the trip. I was never afforded the opportunity that I did not know. It would have been something I was like, hey, I better do this before it's done.
Oh, you missed a lot of fun. So as
I've heard
students,
so many stories of it.
As students, we would all get on at the station down at the end of Hollis Street.
Yeah.
And we would be packed with students, and then along the way you'd lose students. And by the time you got to Digby, there was like a few students left to go on to Yarmouth. But it was a great way to move, and that's what we need. We need to be able to move people more efficiently and more economically.
And of course, as you see, as the 102 corridor, as that further enhances and has had the 107 connection now with the extension, the Shaw connector, the other side of the land, some of those additions. And I know there was like talk of perhaps the shipping container terminal things. Is that a yard? And so yeah, it's going to be an exciting time.
So if you go down to North Beaverbank, which runs into Rod and Gold Mines,
yes,
and that which connects into Enfield and Elmsdale, there's so much room for potential for expansion, for housing, for businesses, and I think we really have to grasp that potential. And the thing is, it doesn't all come up Beaverbank Road and towards Sackville. It could start going the other direction.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of getting the right plan, getting the right vision. That's what the JRTA is for, and to look at the potential we have here. But Beaverbank has a real mix of small communities within communities,
yes.
Newer houses, older communities.
And you have the more suburban to the more rural.
Absolutely.
To the, hey, you are in the woods.
Well, it's really cool.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of a different sense of community in all of them.
Yes.
But there are some real go-getters out there. I mean, I look at Brian Johnson and what he's done with Brown Hall,
Yes.
trying to get Scout Camp turned back to Brown Hall to give it back to the community, because the Scouts Canada hasn't used it in years.
And
right?
the property that's next to it, if there's a possibility of trails,
The trails,
development, those kinds of
absolutely.
things.
Yeah.
And that's where when you draw the line, right, the next ring of growth, like the north side of Beaverbank Lake, would be Beaverbank's beach. We
That's
finally
right.
have a beach. We could have a provincial park with trails. Would there be camping? Maybe. But this is something that it's an exciting opportunity.
Well, in Sullivan's
to see
Crossing, it's a campground.
Well, yeah, that's right. Sullivan's Crossing with the filming in Hollywood North. It's wonderful to see.
So
some
my
of these
vision,
different things coming to Beaverbank. Yeah.
when I was talking to Brian, we were really trying to get Scout Camp turned over to Brown Hall. Was really envisioning a place for kids to take swim lessons in the summer, canoe and kayak, to really make it a community focus. To have a minibus or a school bus go into Woodbine Trailer Park and take kids down.
And that's what you see what Windsor Junction Community Center.
Exactly.
As you explore that kind of thing, it's like, yes, we need central. We need a common kind of place or area that we can have events, and I know we have the ball fields.
Yeah.
A wonderful project through with trails and upgrades there that has just been finally been done. It's wonderful, but again, you have the challenge of being a floodplain, so it limits some development. So even that the property on the corner of Majestic and
I know,
Beaver
you
Bank,
like that, eh?
you know, there's these spots that it's just like to have the community connection or the community gathering point, because as it grows and expands, you know.
So here's the thing, is that Beaver Bank has always been part of Sackville, but it's been Beaver Bank's over here. And now Beaver Bank is part of, provincially, Waverly, Fall River, Beaver Bank, and Beaver Bank's over here.
Yeah.
So
and
we
now,
need to focus.
now municipally, Beaver Bank, Lower Sackville again.
But we need to focus on infrastructure and services for children, for the community. That's why we need something like the Scout Camp to get turned over to Brown Hall. When they're done with the film set, maybe we can do that. There's a small group that's starting to converge to start looking for more ice surface for outside of downtown Halifax. All of the tax dollars that we're paying out here, they all go to downtown Halifax. You think, what are we getting for services in Beaver Bank? It's like, I don't know, you
and
tell me.
that's what hopefully, you know,
Not
as we recognize some of these opportunities and say, hey, we should really try and look to get this now. It's an exciting time. Exciting time.
And I think there's enough groups. I mean, there are several good community groups. Even the Awareness Association, which gets funding from the windmill, is able to help people out.
Yes.
You know, at certain times when maybe you need help with an oil bill or like it, there are some good organizations. Your Woodbine Community Group has made leaps and bounds to help residents in that community. So I just think that things are coming together, and we still need to push forward, and we need to push harder.
Absolutely. We'll move into the next one. So there are schools in Beaver Bank that have been in desperate need of repairs for a while, a long time. And there has been some roofing work and paving work that has been started in sections after the community has demanded it. Much is left to do. What would you do to ensure the schools in Beaver Bank get repaired and the grounds can improve, like pavements and play areas?
So, as a principal for 14 years, I know the challenges and the struggles, the concerns and the frustrations of trying to get infrastructure repaired. So one of the biggest items for any school board or even for the province right across is really the allocation that each, I guess, regional center for education has for maintaining their buildings, maintaining their playgrounds, maintaining their parking lots. Parking lots are important in school grounds because it's also a playground during the day.
Yes.
So the tool that we have as MLAs is to advocate to the regional center for education, and it's always good to keep it top of mind, because what the regional center looks at is like they have a priority list. And they say, well, this school is here, and Beaver Bank Monarch is here, and Kinzac is here. And so if it's not at the top of the priority list for that particular project, then it doesn't get done until it moves up the list. So there's a limited amount of funds, but my role is to really continue to advocate until things can get done. And that's the role of any MLA right across this province.
Awesome. Thank you very much for continuing to advocate. So kind of a follow-up to that is that in Beaver Bank, SAC positions, school advisory council positions are hard to find, like the community member role. Home and school PTAs are not being engaged in some schools, and the Home and School Federation in Nova Scotia had actually they're gone now. There's no presence. So it's becoming a lot of demand on Beaver Bank school principals, balancing support staff and making sure you have the education for the students. So the Beaver Bank Area Parents Group is starting. Does your party want school boards or school advisory committees? What's your thoughts of what's working?
Yeah, you know what?
What's not? What can we do?
Yeah, so we're looking.
What's the angle?
We're looking for the best way for community parents to have a voice. School boards around the province, some function very well. Some did not function well at all. But the former government got rid of school boards. Some people thought it was a good idea, some people thought it was a bad idea. So the idea to replace it was school advisory councils. And I headed a couple of them because I was principal at a few different schools during the time. It is tough to get people engaged in participating in them. And some schools are really small. You know, you might have 75 kids in your school. And then you might have a school with, 1,300 kids in your school. Depending on the principal, depending on the community that surrounds the school, depends on the quality of the SAC. People are busy, working 2 jobs, raising 1 or several kids.
School staff, if the meeting's at 3 o'clock,
That's right.
that can be a tricky time.
It can be.
So does the school staff, do they have to stay late? And can they do face-to-face, person-to-person, or is it all Zoom?
And it's not, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be all like school staff that's on it. It's nice to have a representative from the school. Most meetings in my time were usually like in the evening. So,
Okay.
so what that means is that, you're able to go home, you're able to have, maybe hopefully have dinner with your family, and then go off to a meeting. But then kids are involved in things. Kids are involved in sports, or involved in clubs, or you're just tired. So it's really tough for parents to get involved and to find the time in this day and age to participate in things. But those communities that do have those people that are available or able to be able to balance their time,
Yeah.
that's what makes good SACs. So when you say what are we looking for as a government, what
Yes.
we're looking for, because we did change it around a little bit to try to give parents, try to give community more voice. I think we're still in a transition,
Yeah,
but I
and
hope we're moving in the right direction.
as new committee members come forward, one thing is I've joined and done research on the SACs, trying to see how it goes. For a new committee member coming in, is there training? Is there videos? Is there instruction? There's the handbook and
Yeah.
things that are posted provincially, but how it's to operate, what its guiding principles are, what are those sorts of things. It can be difficult if a school is going to meet 4 times a year. The general assumption is probably, hey, it probably wouldn't meet in December and June, maybe, so that way the work can be done. But again, the more meetings in a school year, the more work for a principal or the committee to do too, to prep.
Yeah.
It's challenging.
But
It's
in
challenging.
theory, if an SAC is working properly, it should lessen the work for a principal.
Engaging the school community.
That's right. So
Right.
some schools do have,
Yeah.
still have homeschool associations,
Mhm.
but that's really a choice of leadership at the school, because home and schools can be very beneficial in doing fundraisers and helping solve some problems within the community, and very beneficial. And sometimes they do fall off. You get a new administrator, or people.
As the changes in the flow.
Right, kids
And we've
finish
had one-
school. Right.
We've had a very active one. That one was working wonderfully. Those children age out.
Exactly.
The
that.
parents go usually along with them, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, hey, so and so used to do this. Well, who's going to take it up? And
That's
then
right.
sometimes you fall into, well, there hasn't been one, and so I got my plate full right now. It's
Yeah.
it's,
Well, you're going
it's
to
a lot on a principal.
experience that very soon.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So,
It's-
but I do think that we still need to work towards a model, a solution, where the community and parents feel engaged in the school process if they choose to be engaged.
Yeah.
And like I say, some parents they have wonderful skills,
Mhm.
but sometimes what they lack is time. And so we have to be accepting of that, but still find a way.
And that's where I see some of the benefits where the school boards had. When you went through, as part of the municipal elections, you elect a member for the area. That person's costs, I think, were accommodated like it was a position. And then they were able to vote
That's
on
right.
regular items, whether it was curriculum-wise or expenditure-wise. Yeah, I didn't get into school boards as much, but it was always something that you can take a deep dive into and see how they did work, and then kind of see the pros and cons of how the SACs and how the centers of education
Yeah.
kind of go too.
Yeah.
No, it'll be interesting to see how things start to evolve.
For all intents and purposes, it's still fairly new. It's still evolving, and we always look for continuous improvement, and hopefully one step at a time.
Okay, we'll go into talking about Woodbine. It is the province's largest land lease community, and in our riding, it's the most dense neighborhood of affordable housing. And there has been long-standing concerns by its residents. They own their units and their homes, that's their real estate, their chattel, and then they lease the land from an operator. So water meters were mandated to be installed on homes by the operator. And then it wasn't until policy 45 came that there was clarity that water's to be included with lot rent. But it did separate to say those with meters now will continue to pay a water bill, and for water bill reading, there's a lack of recreation facilities programming for the area. And of course, the Woodbine Community Nonprofit Society is the only homeowners association for land lease communities in the province. So, we've had a great deal in the last 3-4 years. What would you do to help support and represent residents of Woodbine?
Well, first off, kudos to you.
And the committee.
Yes, but kudos to you.
Fantastic.
They are fantastic, but I believe it was your idea. You brought them together. Your committee works hard. You work hard. The beauty of it is that there was such a gray area with all of the things for water, for community guidelines, and people didn't know what was legal, what was not legal, what was within their rights or within the owner's rights. And I think for a long time that the owner understands the gray area. But what you and your committee's been able to do is to really start making that gray area a little more black and a little more white.
It's been the fact finding, at least finding, well, the park's on municipal water, so it must be Halifax water, so it must be a municipal issue. And that's kind of where Lisa Blackburn, Richard Zarowski, and Lori Nicolai, when they had done a challenge to the water meters, like what's going on? And the Utility and Review Board said, well, it's like operating as a private utility. We have no jurisdiction. So then they're kind of sat for a while.
Yeah.
And now finally, as we fact find, interview the community partners, speak, partner, meet, it's brought a lot of clarity as to what the roles are, because it's something that probably hadn't been looked at since 2000s when the Manufactured Home Advisory Committee, when that had met in the early 2000s. So yeah.
When somebody is in a land lease community, they're paying rent for the lot that they are on.
Yes.
They have a right to clean drinking water all of the time, not intermittently. They have a right, if they have a water meter, to be able to see a bill. But as we found out through the first court challenge, is that when you are in a land lease community and the water utility comes in at the head of the park, that you cannot charge somebody, you cannot meter them. And so that first court challenge was humongous for you guys.
Yes.
So unfortunately, it's an individual challenge. I hope,
Yeah.
hopefully, that with your work with Dow Legal Aid, we'll be able to get enough people together to challenge it for everybody and to get it changed. So, but you asked, what would I do to help support, or what have we done? So through our MLA office, we have been able to provide some funding through advertising and stuff.
I appreciate the support.
Yeah, you know what? When there's good stuff going on, we like to support it for sure. We've been able to get people engaged from some of the relevant departments, residential tenancies, and others, in order to try to figure things out. We didn't know where to go with the water issue. We really did.
It's been a huge fact-finding educational component because as we look municipally,
Yeah,
since 1986, the municipal bylaws for mobile home parks hadn't been updated. And then we had that modernization project that has occurred through the L500 bylaw. So that's been a fantastic opportunity, and we got clarification. It was just amazing that the timing lined up
Yes.
there. It was wonderful. And now, as our community group has direct communication with the residential tenancy program, and as we start to meet and discuss the big issues, it's been great that we've been able to make the connections, and you speaking with the minister called LeBlanc, it's been wonderful. So
so on that topic.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm so happy with is because it actually got changed in the legislation was the land lease community guidelines, and those guidelines we know that in Woodbine.
Yeah, it was the bill 465 or something.
Yes.
Its introduction.
I don't remember if it was 456 or
456. It was 4 something. Yes.
It was worse. But anyway, it was, everybody is now following the same community guideline.
Yeah.
If you live there for 30 years, you don't go by that guideline, but they're all consistent. So if I want to have a building, an outbuilding, a shed, 10 by 12, then everybody should be able to have a shed up to 10 by 12.
Trying to going for
others.
right. Where all residents are treated equally.
Yeah, so that was a big win, but that didn't only affect Woodbine, it affected every land lease community.
And the work we are doing is the fact-finding, education program, even with legal aid and legal partners and through lawyers and clarification of what is a municipal, what's a provincial, what's a landlord responsibility, and what's a resident responsibility, or even, hey, the subletter. There's it's a complex dive.
Yeah.
So where there's been a modernization project with HRM, with the bylaw, and we look at it hasn't been touched since the 2000s, and what we're doing, should it be like a land lease communities project as we look for affordable housing? Should it be like a budget item that there's a project or some sort of thing to that?
To increase, to have more land lease communities?
Is that something, no, just clarification on, like, we need to find out how many there are in the province. How big are they? What municipalities are they in? Halifax has a municipal bylaw where East Hants and other municipalities, do they have a land lease old mobile home park bylaw at all? As we know from East Hants, it's just the description of what a home looks like. But there's nothing about requirements for water testing. There's nothing about requirements for private road, snow removal, those sorts of things. And that's kind of the next evolution as we talk about water testing with the Department of Environment, what they used to do to issue an engineer's report. And then the operator got their operating permit because there was custody of the water. So there's those fine details that are kind of happening, and that's what hopefully as things evolve with the next caucuses and things like that, that we get a chance to kind of present and say, can we make this a budget item, like a project to modernize, that sort of thing.
So that's the beauty of the Woodbine Community Group, is that you're doing fact finding. We're trying to find out what's the truth and what's not. Trying to figure out, does this belong provincially, does it belong municipally? And you're trying to you're basically building a rule book for land lease communities. So as we go through the process, I think it's a great idea to look at it on a wider scale and across the province, because it is a viable option for people to live, for people to live more affordably as well.
Yeah, and we look at that, the need for affordable housing, and we recognize manufactured homes, and with investors or operators, it's a hot commodity right now
Yeah.
kind of thing too. But it's not foreign because in Florida, the manufactured homes, their communities, they're owned and operated by the residents.
That's right.
Can they be co-ops or something similar like the Provincial Housing Authority, that there's these projects, whether they're created and owned, operated by a non-profit or as like a condo corporation, as ownership and those kinds of things.
And those are great ideas, and it's a new
Yeah.
world, because we
Yeah.
want people to be homeowners if they choose to be. And we need to make sure that there are affordable ways for first-time home buyers or for seniors or to downsize.
And
in order to have
even
a place to live.
Cobequid, the Cobequid community that's been built and established, that's a manufactured modular
Yes, it is.
home community,
Yeah,
but with the separate nonprofits operating, and then the other nonprofits that do the wraparound services, I guess is what's the terms being used.
yeah.
It's exciting to see the possibilities as we look for these kinds of solutions, and then making sure that things are established as well. And as we talk about policy 45 and how we've gotten to this point and why that 10-year sort of thing has been allowed to happen, we look at the Form J process, that the onus is on an individual resident to go and look to. We've done the feasibility study of an enforcement unit. Would something like that have been able to go out and address that and say, look, we're investigating this, and according to the act, we're looking at those sorts of things. So we do obviously look forward to how things are going to evolve and have a conversation and see what can be done. And
These
where
are
to
big
go.
steps
Yeah.
that haven't been looked at in years.
Exactly.
So, and
Yeah.
it's great to see that it's your baby, the Woodbine Community Group, and your committee.
I just like to be the facilitator. to
And
make
you are,
sure it
but
goes.
what I'm saying is that
yeah.
it was your idea, but the
Yeah.
thing is, it's gonna have an impact right across Nova Scotia.
I was born there. I lived there
Yeah.
for several years, and having family, friends, students that I worked with and
Yeah.
through education in the area and things like that as well.
Yeah,
I just didn't like people being taken advantage of and just being like, hold up, stop, wait a minute,
that's right.
something's not right here.
But it's a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not gonna end for a long time, there's still a long ways to go.
Yeah.
But my role as MLA is to support community groups like yours in any way that we possibly can.
Mhm.
So committed to continuing that for sure.
Okay, so to get in the last couple questions, Beaverbank has had a significant loss of services. The bus route had shortened in half to the community center, leaving out Ivy Meadows, but the frequency increased. Fortunately, Ivy Meadows we thought was going to close, but has found a new operator with Northwood, which is fantastic. We greatly appreciate that. And Northwood has opened in a training program, but now doesn't have bus service. We've always kind of looked for an MLA office that's usually been in Fall River, Waverly, but there's some challenges of not having a fully accessible office space in Beaverbank. So, would you commit to having MLA office hours at the Brown Hall, the community center, to provide a needed community resource?
Good question. So since I started, I've had MLA office hours at Brown Hall on a pretty regular basis, just about at least once a month I'm there. If people need to meet with me and I don't have office hours, I have on several occasions come out to their place. I've been down past here, down to a meeting or down to do a notary for somebody because they couldn't get in. So my preference is always, if somebody wants a meeting to meet with me, I always prefer to go to their home or to the area where they may be having issues, because I like to get the context of it. And it also engages me with the community. So if I'm out, if somebody wants to talk to me about, an issue that affects them, that's provincial, I prefer to go to their house and sit at their table. Not everybody's comfortable with that. Sometimes we meet at the office, but Brown Hall, it's kind of hit and miss. Sometimes I could sit there and I could have 30 people in a night, and sometimes I could have 3 people.
That's right, yeah.
But people like to drop in and say hello. One of the things they always talk about the traffic, because Brown Hall is at the epicenter.
It's been in the construction stage right there. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. So I know previous MLAs have had office hours down at Beaverbank Kinzac Community Center, and it's just too far down for a lot of people to get to. What I love about Brown Hall is that, as you mentioned, Woodbine is the largest land lease community in the province and the biggest community that we have in the whole area. And people walk up all the time, sometimes just to say hi or to talk about issues. And so, you know what, when we have our barbecues and stuff for a community there, we always, our hot dogs and our chips, the kids come by. And so it's great to connect in that sense.
And that's what kind of having centralized meeting places and those sorts of things and opportunities are just invaluable. And yeah, so thank you for
and we're still working on trying to get Brown Hall as a warming center. Like, it's important to have because you don't know. We're so fortunate this year not to have a hurricane that's taking power out to where people.
And we've recognized that too when we've had I think it was last year, the year before, we had that deep freeze that just boom and hit and froze pipes. And it's like the Brown Hall's heated, so we should have running water for the people that have frozen pipes and everything else too. So that very quickly was like, this should work. How is this GEMS, the emergency measures program, how are these different programs coming? So how can we make sure there's a facility close by? If there was a huge, one of those crippling snowstorms, those nor'easters that come through, those sorts of things, where can we have a resource in a massive heat wave that's air conditioned?
And Beaverbank's lucky because you have something at either end of the city. So you do have Brown Hall at the beginning, and then we have Beaverbank Kinzac down at the other.
We got the Lions Club.
And you got the Lions Club a little further down here. So I'm very fortunate to have that.
Yeah. So as we finish up, we'll talk about kind of the provincial municipal service responsibilities, where the boundary and the agreements kind of come together. There's a split in Beaverbank at the Beaverbank River Ballfield, where HRM is south of that river, and the province would have more responsibility in the north of that river. There is no Beaverbank planning area. Kind of like Sackville would have one as a planning strategy. So if we talk about a part of Marsden Drive, if it's announced, sewer lines would have to be replaced to accommodate growth and expand those lines. What do you see happening with municipal partners as the community grows?
So I think it's important. So first off, it's the municipality that is approving any of the growth that's here. Because if there's somebody that wants to do a development, it's still the municipality that would approve the growth. They also have a requirement for the most part, if you're going to build a community here, you need to pave it. You need to put the infrastructure in. So the onus does come on to the developers at their cost in order to provide that. As far as the roads go, I mean, the province is really responsible for the highway. Or Beaverbank Road down past the ball field. But a lot of things are planned in conjunction with the environmental stuff is all provincial. As far as the size of lots, the size of houses that are allowed, that's all run municipally. We do have special planning areas that we do designate by the province sometimes to expedite good projects, and they've exercised that right. Because developers do get frustrated because they know we do need housing. The whole solution, the way to solve the housing crisis is to build more houses. Very proud as a government, we've made really historical investments into affordable housing and right across the spectrum. We want to see that continue, but we also need to have the infrastructure in place. To have a big development happen here in Beaverbank, and there's still some that are still being built without having the infrastructure to get in and out. You know what? We need to do better. We absolutely need to do better.
So we're kind of, We have like the urban service boundary, which would stop at Tucker Lake. But then there's kind of the need of sidewalk connectivity. We're looking at municipal issues there. And having like water and sewer out to the community center or that kind of thing. But then that's kind of brought what the bus service brought down further to that kind of ended the Ivy Meadows run. But you have that provincial municipal responsibility where at the Beaverbank River, then it would be the Department of Highways, but people still have the HRM bills that come and things like that too. And it's kind of like, shouldn't it be explored to go to the county line with the municipal responsibilities instead of like the overlaps in services or those sorts of things?
So so some of that, Lyle, is kind of beyond really my expertise or my
exactly, yeah.
But at the end of the day, if the community wants it and then it makes sense, then I think you have to work with our municipal counterparts and provincial. And if the project is big enough, even our federal government. So there are infrastructure projects such as the water line that came down Fall River Road.
Okay. Yes.
So that was municipal, provincial, and federal money that brought that down. And you know what? There's a big need over there for water in a couple of communities that I think that they need to look at as well. And that's the same as here in Beaverbank. And so here you look at Beaverbank again as kind of the cousins that are over here.
Well, are we on the right side or the wrong side of the tracks? But there's also just kind of, we have this broken sidewalk network as well, where the students still have that walking radius as the crow flies, as it goes. And like Kinsack Elementary, they're wanting to have a sidewalk. There's these responsibilities that come from more of a municipal side of provincial, but there's also that partner.
So we do
the partnering and the discussions.
We do need to fight with municipality. There's nothing more frustrating than living in this area, paying taxes, and paying a lot of taxes from this area and not getting services. Even common sense services. Now the sidewalks we do have are good sidewalks here.
They've been
nice
constructed well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I always find that the bulk of the money that we pay in taxes are going downtown Halifax. And it's time we had monies come here, and that's the truth. We need money in the whole constituency, but Beaverbank needs its day. There's no two ways about it.
No. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. We appreciate you coming. Thank you very much. It's always a wonderful opportunity to sit down and have conversations about what's affecting us in our area. So if there's anything else you'd like to wrap up and say, now's your time to finish up. Yeah.
So really what I want to focus on are the community groups that are doing great things. In order for Beaverbank to move forward, we still need more people participating in these groups. If you want something, if you want an arena, or if you want a park, or you want something for your kids or your families, then we have to make a concerted effort. I'm willing to go with you lockstep until we make it happen. So Lyle stepped up on several different organizations. We have the Awareness Association. We have Brown Hall. There's some good things going on here, and we need to continue it. So I'm willing to work with you, willing to work with Lyle, and anything that we need for this community. So Lyle, I want to thank you very much for everything that you do and for hosting.
Thank you for coming.
So you only have about 6 hours to edit now. So
a little bit of editing time and have it all together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.